Hey guys, this is Patrick Carl Sedermoon. You might know me as the guy with the most IM medals in the world, or something like that. I'm also the CGO of Fnatic, and you're watching Duncan Thorin Shields YouTube channel. Pleasure being here.
The Swedish Esport League was a league that took place over the better part of 2 years, 2003 to 2004, within the Scandinavian country of Sweden, unsurprisingly by the name. Perhaps you heard me reference it numerous times in a recent Reflections interview with Eyeballer's great Archie, who was the champion in 2004 at the CPL. He actually never won a Swedish Esport League, interestingly enough. The premise behind the league was to attempt to build a professional domestic scene within Sweden. At that point in time, Sweden was the most dominant country in terms of results in Counter-Strike. They had sick internet and infrastructure, but the core thing was you didn't necessarily have a million tournaments over the year. There wasn't that many chances to win money in Counter-Strike. Now, think about it. A key concept here as to why Sweden particularly would try to implement a league like this is the benefit of esports is that you have online play available. In fact, in this era, admittedly, teams had started to not play online as much, like the clan bases, etc. But a couple of years earlier, online play had basically been almost the regular season, and then big LANs were almost like playoffs where you proved yourself. So by the time you come to these years, this is where, yes, the big Swedish teams and the big international teams, except for basically North Americans and people outside of Scandinavia, yeah, they sometimes wouldn't play online play. So this is a way to bring some of them back. But if you do it within Sweden, obviously you can play esports online, right? Especially in the early days, because it's at least comparable to offline play. Let's say it's like 80%, 75% of what an offline match would be like in terms of how the game will go. Yes, there's not a lot of pressure and the same factors. Now, because you can play online, that cuts the cost of travel. Well, remember, at this point in time, getting sponsorship, getting money through the door so you can cover things like travel expenses is going to be a massive limitation, a massive bottleneck, not only on what tournaments you can hold, but on who can even attend them. There were many times in history to this point in time, up to 2003, where the third or fourth best Swedish team simply couldn't afford to go to the major. And so even though they might have actually had a chance at winning the major or at least make top 8, they would sit at home while some fuckers from Germany or Brazil or could be at USA, obviously, would get like a 4th or a 5th or a 6th, and they would be sat at home thinking, we'd have fucking toasted these guys, but why can't we get there? Because those people were the best in their country and had the sponsorship. So the clever thing here was they were able to have a LAN element. Now, in making this tournament, this meant that now there was another thing that Swedish teams could compete in when they were not at the big international tournaments, which, by the way, at that point in time, the majors, as it were, there was like 2 or 3 per year, and it wasn't guaranteed that anyone except the absolute top 5, say, teams in the world would be able to get there because of sponsorship. Then there would be medium tournaments in the calendar as well. Let's say, again, 2 or 3. We're talking like CPL Europes. Sometimes, eventually, you had the other tournaments coming along. Now, again, you have to have the sponsorship to go to them, and actually, these medium-sized tournaments pay way less in terms of prize money overall and for first place than those big international tournaments, the CPLs, the World Cyber Games, ESWC. So as a result, you also, even if you're a top team, tended to only attend some of the smaller, medium-sized events if it was closer to your region or it didn't basically break the bank to go there. Because if it's only going to be like 6K first place, well, then to fly 5 people and potentially a manager, you actually, I mean, you don't use all the prize money necessarily anyway as the team, but you wouldn't even break even if you won the tournament necessarily in certain countries. So one of the interesting details about how this was set up is, as I said, I mentioned online, but I said it's on LAN. That's what was very interesting and why Sweden was obviously the perfect place for this league to be set up. Because the concept of the league was that each team was associated with a LAN cafe, a LAN centre. Now, obviously, Sweden has tons of these, especially back then it had a lot because it was one of the most best internet-connected countries in the world with some of the best speed, and it had a LAN centre culture. Even when I was going there as recently as like 10 years ago, things like going to an event online was still a fairly big deal. Like you saw a lot of youth in there, a lot of people who walked by on those roads nearby would have recognised Heaton, etc. if they were there. So the key thing is, you would have these LAN centres, and the LAN centres also wouldn't just be the ones in Stockholm. Yeah, there might be like 5 or 6 really good LAN centres in Stockholm, but these would be some in Gothenburg and Malmö and wherever. You could go all over the country to find them. Luleå. So a perfect example would be Inferno Online, probably the most famous Swedish LAN centre, because not too many of you old school like me and remember Cafe 9. SK Gaming, even to the end of 1.6 used to play there, and back then that was the cafe associated with them for most of the period of time of this league. There would be other ones if you were someone in Gothenburg, again depending on where you were located. Now, you would play as the team, let's say SK or Team 9 or whoever, HLO. You'd go to this LAN cafe, so you were playing on LAN, and together with your team sat next in a row like you would if you were at a LAN event, but you'd play the other team from their LAN cafe over the internet. But they were also on LAN there together like it was a LAN setting. Now, because it's Sweden, assuming you're not too far apart, like maybe if you're in one like Luleå and someone's in like Malmö, then yeah, that might have like slightly higher ping, but even then it's Sweden, dude. Like you're probably still going to have like 10, sub 10 ping probably. So it's basically LAN ping and almost the LAN quality, but it avoids a lot of the expenses and limitations. If this had actually been a LAN league, some of these teams couldn't necessarily have travelled. It also meant, as you can probably figure out, it's not as though the fourth best Swedish team was going to go and live it all in one LAN centre in some obscure spot to play in this league, right? So first of all, it also allowed some other talent to get involved with playing the best teams and testing their mettle and seeing who was good, and some players rose and some teams rose because of this, because they were located elsewhere in the country. And of course, you could still travel by train or something to there to play the play days if you were like the one guy who didn't live in that particular city and the rest of your team did. So it also provided sort of an infrastructure to Swedish Counter-Strike beyond just all the million rendezvous lands and birdie lands and all those dream hacks eventually, those like big casual lands that would then have an esports tournament on the side, but it was like semi-pro. This was trying to be pro, even though many of the players who weren't the top players were the semi-pros. Some of them even rank amateurs who just had the skills to play in the league. So the LAN finals often were held in Stockholm, at least most seasons. In fact, as it went later on, and you saw them not holding it there and holding them in more and more obscure places and teams even skipping, that was kind of a sign that the league was in trouble and it was going downhill. The prize money for this league was really legit for the time. It started in its first season just under $3,000 for the winning team. It went up as high for most of the middle period, for most seasons, to $6,000 for first place. And the final season, I think it was the final season, had $9,000 for first place. So over the 7 seasons, it averages out to $5,000 for first place each time to play a domestic league, when in theory you're going to your local LAN centre, play with your team, playing against them. Now, online competition at the time, in many cases, didn't even pay anything if you won these things. Cal Invite in North America, Clan Base in Europe often. So the interesting thing about this is, at a time when those medium-sized events I was talking about, like CPL Copenhagen, that paid out, the tournament that took place in 2003, the latter part that SK Sweden won with Spawn and Heaton and Potty, that paid out $5,800 for first place and had obviously not only really great Nordic teams, but generally a stacked international competition because it wasn't only Swedish teams. So would you rather just only play the Swedish teams or play Swedish teams plus the rest of the world for the same money? You can see which one makes sense. That's why it was so appealing. So actually, winning the Swedish Esport League most seasons, would quite frankly be as good as like 5th or 6th at a lot of the CPL majors in North America, which would be really hard to get that kind of placing in. That meant also that you could get good money for the teams who finished 3rd or 4th in the Swedish Esport League. Because as I referenced, even though Sweden was sick at Counter-Strike, it was very top heavy due to the lack of sponsorship opportunities to go abroad. Sometimes the 3rd or 4th best teams would have players as good. In fact, some of them they'd later go on and join the Team 9s and the SK Gamings of the world. But they were just stuck in a position where they couldn't go to the big LAN and prove themselves against the rest of the field, as it were, and show that actually Sweden maybe had the top 4 teams in the world at certain points in time. Little detail for you. At CPL Summer 2003, the top 3 teams at the tournament were all Swedish primarily. Now, an interesting final detail to add before we jump into actually looking at the leagues, I'm going to kind of take you through it, is a really cool side detail. It wasn't even branded as a massive issue, is that as an anti-cheat measure, they made all the players, in theory, record their POV demo, and as a result, at a time when HLTV demos were really shit, the quality was terrible. Sometimes you didn't even have like the proper crosshair on the screen in the same way that you did in 1.6. You had that situation where it was all laggy and jerky and it had auto directors sometimes set on it. Like nightmares. I mean, obviously you could turn that off and go manually if you wanted to. At this point in time, this made it like a 10 times better experience to watch the game because there was no stream, there was no broadcast. And remember, this is also an era when players used to hide their POV demos or not release them unless they were like super insane or maybe for trash talk purposes as a one-off. And so that was also a massive deal that you could go on the FTP and you could get all these demos, or you could go on SoGamed or whatever websites are out there and download these big time demos. So let's actually go and look at this league itself, and we'll talk through the seasons and some of the memories and some of the key aspects and storylines. Okay, so here we are. We're on Liquipedia. I'm going to run you through some of the details of the Swedish Esport League, give you some of the interesting storylines, pieces of trivia, anecdotes that I remember, core context as to what's going on, who's winning, what's a surprise, etc. So here we are on the base page. It says up here, Swedish Esports League. By the way, that's incorrect. Go and look at the graphic here. It says quite clearly, Swedish Esport League. That's because, interestingly, for some bizarre reason, within Sweden, and actually Sweden and Norway, they for some reason call it esport instead of esports, which, I mean, okay, it's a little bit bizarre in that sense, but whatever. So I don't know why actually Liquipedia's corrected it to esports here. You shouldn't really do that. You should stick with the real name of the tournament. Like, it's not up to you to rename the tournament, mate. But okay, so the Swedish Esport League, as you can see here, there were 7 seasons. The first one began on March the 29th of 2003, and season 7, the last one, ended on November the 21st of 2004. So we're going to go season by season here. So season 1 began, and remember, this is starting in March of 2003. So here's where the world is at that point in time in Counter-Strike. So the last major at that point in time would have been CPL Winter 2002. And that was relevant because that was the first major in Counter-Strike ever won by a North American team. It was won by Team 3D with Moto and K-Sharp and Rambo and Bullseye and Kane and Steel. And famously, they won beating SK, Game Online, these top Swedish teams, and it was one of the few times where Sweden didn't actually have a major winner. Before they were winning all the majors, and actually North America at best was going to be second or third. So it was quite relevant actually that this was like a brief moment where Sweden was still overall the best country, but the best team might be in North America. But the result of that was that because Sweden was used to winning those majors and definitely always taking like top 2 or 3 spots, that actually kind of humbled them and made them do a bunch of roster moves. Hence, like SK Gaming changed to a much better lineup. Wasn't the super team lineup of later in this year yet. Like obviously people like Vesselin's Team 9 changed, like a whole bunch of the squads basically went away, changed their teams. Game Online, even the one that had come second and probably should have been the favourite to win the tournament, well, one of them with Eolithic, didn't actually even keep their lineup the same. So Sweden was really in flux here, and then along comes this esport league with good funding, it's on LAN, this crazy premise, at a time when, as I said, you maybe only go to 6 tournaments a year, even if you're the biggest team in the world. Some of them even used to go to semi-pro LANs just individually or as a little mixed team. So in this particular tournament, the teams that were the favourites would go in this order. Team 9 is far and away the favourite because Team 9 here is the team that is Vesselin, legendary in-game leader, nearly always within Sweden's second best teams. And he's got a bunch of like young talent here that he picked up from teams that were getting good in late 2002. Like if you remember at CPL Oslo, one of the teams that was at that particular tournament had a bunch of the players that he took and brought into this team. In fact, he kind of just harvested the young talent, and then Venom was an older school player from Nordic Division that was kind of Vesselin's coming up era. So Team 9 were far and away the favourites to win this, but then again, they're still a newer lineup, so they have to test that, and some of these names haven't played at the same level, but Vesselin's bringing them up to that level. It's mainly only Vesselin and Venom have been at that level. Then you have people like Matrix. Now, Matrix were a notorious onliner team because they had a whole bunch of really skilled players, particularly Spawn and Scream. I also thought Bulletproof was a pretty good AWPer. But the problem was, even though famously they played on LAN from the Matrix Cafe, as it was called, they actually were famously mega good online and could even go head-to-head with some of the absolute best teams. Supposedly in scrims, they could beat like the SK and NIP teams of Heaton and Party. But the problem is, some of these guys, when they would go to the big LANs, CPL Oslo 2002, a number of them, basically the team flunked, they wouldn't qualify for these LANs, and it was always underwhelming. And so the problem is, the fact that they played on LAN, if you looked into it, was part of the context, because first of all, they were kind of chokers, and secondly, because they actually did literally play and were sponsored by a LAN cafe in an era when, before this league, actually most teams, the players were at home, yes, on amazing connections, but even then, not necessarily as amazing as like the Matrix Cafe, because some of the big LAN cafes in Sweden, basically, why they had god tier connections that like 50 people, 100 people could play on with super sick ping, is because they were on like the backbone fiber connections within Sweden, as far as I remember. So Matrix was an interesting team because they had all these really good players there, but were they actually going to be able to do anything? Then you had like some of the teams that were on the come up. So obviously Game Online was there, but with like actually, from what I remember, not that great a lineup overall. Then you had like Highland Online were like starting to rise up, but still no one knew quite how good they were. You had some of the talent that later became too easy. or had been the previous year in GamePoint here, Filler, Logic. You had the xPerenience.se guys. As far as I remember, I think they were based in Gothenburg. They were pretty decent. Most of the others, though, yeah, no-namers, people that we don't necessarily know. I'll mention Laget because famously, they shockingly won the World Cyber Games qualifier for Sweden in 2002, beating actually Vestlund's team, only to then go to the finals in South Korea and absolutely bomb out and do fuck all relevant. So there was some known teams here. Now, you will note, conspicuous by their absence is SK Gaming. Where is SK 2003? Where's the team that had Heaton and Potty, the greatest winners in the history of Swedish Counter-Strike? They're not present. So that already puts a little dampener on this first season. It's supposed to be Team 9 that definitely wins. Teams like Matrix have a chance to. Game Online, if they get their shit together. Then like Highland, Experience, these sort of teams should be in the mix. But, you know, they're competing for maybe a playoff spot at best. Now, if we look at the format, so you played basically a whole bunch of best of ones. At the time, I remember we were playing MR12, so 13 rounds wins you the game in regulation. You play 9 of those because you play every team once. And then the playoffs has 4 teams in it, and it's a gauntlet style. So if people don't know that, obviously Korean League of Legends uses that for the last few years in the LCK. Basically, it means if you're number 1, you just wait in the final for whoever's going to meet you. If you're number 2, you wait in the semi-final or whatever for whoever can meet you. And then number 3 and number 4, who are the other teams that make the playoffs, play each other in the first match. Winner of that plays the second place team. Winner of that plays the first place team. And interestingly enough, if you look here, actually there were no upsets in the playoffs. Like, at the end of the season, as I said, Team 9 was the best team. Matrix was the second best team. That's all pretty brilliant. By the way, at this tournament in particular, where they had the POV demos, a lot of the shit that went into those frag movies for Spawn, one of the most legendary players ever, even though at this point in time he's considered a LAN choker to some degree, a lot of the shit in that comes from this LAN because the POVs were released. And at this LAN, he absolutely monsters. Like, he has loads of demos where he's just bodying fuckers. I remember a famous one on Cobble, where, like, on CT side, he's just like pushing all the way through and just fucking people up as a CT pushing into the halls where normally you just wait in those halls for the terrorists to come through. So he had a really, really mad event. But Team 9 was the better squad. They had the tactics, they had the skill, and they obviously had the team play that Vestlund was developing and a veteran in-game leader, proven winners. But then this is the interesting part. Highland Online ends up coming third, tied with Matrix. Now at this point in time, Highland Online, like Goodfella, becomes a very relevant player over the next few years, was clearly a top Swedish player. Megaton and Magix. By the way, Magix, if people don't know, is actually the older brother, I believe, of Jumpy, who's now the coach of some Danish team in it. Isn't he coach like Heroic or something? Someone like that. I forget some Danish, but he was obviously at one point in time the coach of Fnatic, if people don't know, and played with MYM at the end of 1.6 with Zet and Delpan and those guys. These two, though, were infamous fucking onliners. Megaton, by the way, is the younger brother of Spawn as well. So this was an interesting team because they ended up having brother connections in Counter-Strike. So this was kind of like a shock that this team came up. Yes, the hype had been there behind the scenes, but then they made it. Now, in terms of the team that finished fourth, though, GamePoint, right? Okay, yes, Filler and Logic have been in top teams in the past. Haven't done as much on LAN overall. Filler went to CPL Summer 2003 with Vestlund's team. 2002 rather, sorry, with the Esports United team that became Team 9. But aside from that, I mean, they don't even have the other players referenced here, but I can tell you they weren't super duper famous. But as I said, the name Game Online, legendary cafe, by the way, I believe actually that is, I think that might also be in Gothenburg actually. They actually didn't have that good a performance. Look, Game Online finishes all the way down at 8th because they've changed their roster. I assume some of the other Nordic players that weren't Swedish just didn't attend. And Laget proves actually that, look, they finished 0-9. They weren't really that great a team. I mean, to be fair, the star player of Laget, who beat the guys from Team 9, not in that match though, in terms of being the star player was Quick, by the way. And Quick is the player who then is in Team 9 now. So to be fair, the best player of Laget has been stripped out. So that's basically all there is to say there. Look how dominant the finals result is. Look how close to Matrix was the Highland Online one. Now, the key thing is here, just watch out for Highland Online. Watch out for what that core does. They've already actually kind of impressed, you know, with the third place, tying Matrix. They've already won the first playoff match. They almost made the final. That will be relevant going on. But at this point in time, everything gone to plan, right? No upsets. The teams basically finished sort of where they should. The champions were Team 9, as you'd expect. Cool. They get to win almost $3,000. Now let's move on to Season 2, right? So this one, if you notice, That actually can't be right. There's no way they get... Oh, no, it was. There's another detail I think I've got wrong. I believe, actually, that this first ever Swedish Esport League, this is how your memory works, wasn't actually with them all at the LAN cafes playing separately. I think the first Swedish Esport League might even... Oh, no, sorry, I'm thinking of the LAN finals. I think the LAN finals is what the dates are here, where it's just this weekend here. I think the rest of it actually did take place from the LAN cafes, because obviously, wow, people travel from miles away if they're like going to be 9th place. Swedish Esport League Season 2 comes along. So it's literally taking place, like, not even that much later. It starts like a week later, and it basically has the LAN finals like a month or two later. Now, this is where already you're going to see from the results, we're going to get some massive shocks here, but we'll get into that. The first thing to note is still no SK Gaming. At this point in time, SK Gaming, listen, isn't the best team in the world anymore. Like, actually, around the honour, technically they might have been considered that. I'm trying to remember in terms of my memory as to whether Click Arenas happened yet, which Team 9 won. I feel as though maybe Click Arena happens just after this. I think that would make sense. So it could happen just before, though. So it's debatable who the best team in Sweden is at that point. But anyway, SK not going, yeah, they're conspicuous in their absence, right? So let's just look at the teams here. So you have the Team 9 team that won the previous season, same lineup, so they're obviously favourites to win this time. You have Matrix, which, listen, they've actually lost Spawn at this point in time. Because, I mean, I can't actually remember what Spawn was doing. I think he just went off to play... Oh, I think it was when he was in that bullshit, like... Later in the year, he played in that HLO, like, NateDOhDoubleG team that was, like, a mixture of Norwegian players and Swedish players. But at this point in time, for some reason, he doesn't play, even though he was, like, one of the MVPs of Season 1. But they managed to re-up with talent by bringing in a guy called Zad, who later became a good player for the next year or so. Cole Sprotter, who'd been in a different... who'd been in Nordic Division, actually, with Venom, if you go back a couple of years prior. But he was also someone who on LAN hadn't had as good performances, even though he had very good spray. So Matrix is again going to be a team contending, you assume, right? You've got the Highland Online team that impressed and finished 3rd. Same lineup going head-to-head. You've got... This time, Game Online's coming with the big boys. Look, they've got Gozi, who'd always played there. Hib was one of the greatest players of all time. The greatest AWPer in history at this point in time had been in it. The NIP squads of old with Heaton and Potty. Missa, he was one of the greatest Finnish players, especially a very good LAN player. Soledge was the brother of Hib and was a very good player with Game Online. He'd finished top 3, top 2 at a number of CPLs in North America, which were majors. And they retained Zafe, who actually is like a young up-and-coming player who starts to develop his skills at this point in time. The Game Point team's still there. So, okay, in terms of favourites, it should, again, heavily be Team 9. There's no reason Team 9 should not be winning this tournament. And then after that, you're going to think, right, maybe Matrix again. They've even put in some new talent. Highland Online have a chance, right? And then after that, Game Online. I mean, surely they should actually break in and beat out Highland Online and Matrix. So this should be Team 9 versus Game Online in the final, right? Spoiler, it isn't. So let's go and look what happens here. So in the regular season, Game Online only wins 2 games. Now, I'm going to guess, if we went back and watched those games, maybe some of them were like some players couldn't play or something happened, or maybe they forfeited some of them, did they? Let's have a look here. No, they didn't forfeit any, actually. But I'm guessing something went on there because they were some amazing LAN players, and that was a pretty good lineup, a core of players. Now, Team 9, again, dumpsters this. They just wreck the regular season, but here's where it starts to get interesting. Second place is Highland Online. This time, they win 1 game extra, they get the 2nd seed. Third place, this is where you're already going to see the upsets happening. xPerenience.se is on the rise. They're starting to get pretty good. And that's one team I didn't reference. I said it was a team with like Swedish talent that was gradually always rising these years. Now they've added in Digital, a good Finnish LAN player. They've got someone called DSN, who at this point in time is not relevant. Nobody knows him outside of Sweden. But he's going to later on become, because guess what? If anyone knows their CS 1.6 history, skip forwards 3 years, and he's in Fnatic, and they make a fucking dynasty and one of the greatest teams of all time, one of the best Swedish AWPers to ever play. So they then show Sweden's got talent, which is also one of the knock-on effects of the Swedish Esport League, right? Some of these guys wouldn't be able to go to a massive LAN and do it, but they get to do it domestically against the top teams and prove who they are. So xPerenience.se gets the 3rd seed. The Game Point guys, again, continue to play well, actually exceed the expectations of some of the other teams, and lock in that 4th place for the playoffs. And Matrix has the same number of wins, number of points, but round difference fucks them. Not round difference. I assume it was head-to-head. Like, if I'm going to go and look here, let's have a look here. Game Point, Matrix. Where's Matrix as a Game Point? Let's just have a look here. Yes, Game Point beat Matrix. I'm assuming they used head-to-head as a tiebreaker. So that ends up being key, because Matrix, again, is supposed to at least be a playoff team. So let's go to the playoffs here. So, again, The number 1 team goes to here, the number 2 team goes to here, and then 3 and 4 play down here. Again, there are no upsets until the final. So look, we'll start down here this time. Experience beats Game Point narrowly. You're thinking, okay, fair enough. Then Highland Online dumpsters Experience, and Highland Online this time makes the final with the same lineup. So it's the same lineup as played in Season 1 for Highland Online and Team 9. And amazingly, now notice it's 16 rounds to win because we switched to MR15 at this point in time. And by the way, one of the first leagues in the world to do it. People will say ESWC. No, as far as I know, let's have a look here. Yes, I believe this took place before ESWC. So one of the first lands to do it. And actually, Highland Online narrowly edges Team 9, a massive upset at the time. And it really actually got people thinking. Unfortunately, even though Magisk and Megaton, Magix, I don't know why I'm Magix. I'm not even saying Magix the whole time. Whatever, fuck you, Magisk. Why are you doing that to me? But believe it or not, the only player who ended up being a legit, really good LAN player and doing bigger things was Goodfella, and he would be scouted to bigger teams, including, by the way, Veslin's Team 9 by the latter part of this year. He would even play in SK Gaming in latter years, admittedly not the best lines. Even years later, went to North America and actually played with the rival West Coast team because he lived out there because he was knocking boots with some nice little honey. So, don't even know why I put that detail. Fuck it, I'm Thorin, I can do what I want. So, already you have a shock in the first season, and that's with no SK there. So, hey, we're starting to cook with gas now. Let's go to the third season, shall we? What's going on in the third season? Again, look how frequently these things are taking place in the first year. We're starting the first season again, not long after the previous one, and literally 3 months or something after the first Swedish Esport League, we've got the finals of Swedish Esport League Season 3. So if this had actually continued, the problem is, spoiler, when we get to 2004, it slows down quite a lot in terms of how often they have the tournaments and how prestigious they are. So really, this was the heyday. It was the first 3 or 4 seasons. And then after that, it started to hit its problems. But what a cool concept. At the time, this made it seem like Sweden was just going to go so far beyond everyone else because they're now getting other teams coming through on a world-class level. So let's go to Swedish Esport League Season 3. You can already see, good news, SK Gaming's there. Now listen, it's starting in May. So SK Gaming isn't necessarily the number 1 team in the world. By now, I think actually Click Arena probably has happened with Team 9, if I had to guess. Yes, I think it has because... no, actually, it hasn't, I believe, because... Yes, it must have, because if Executor's in the team... Executor wasn't in the team for the Click Arena win. He was in for ESWCs. Okay, interestingly enough. Now, you can already see here, we're going to have some upsets again, boys, but at least SK's here, and SK wins. So, SK Gaming is there. This is the lineup that is not the super dominant 2003 lineup. It's got Al, Brunk, Fisker, Heiten, and Potty. You fucking love the way I just said Brunk. But actually, the problem is Brunk is the player who has to be replaced later in the year by Element, and then later in the year they add Spawn as a 6th man. That's the core, that's the lineup, the 2 different lineups that win the Brazilian majors and all the title and get all those wins in a row and win something like 41 out of 43 maps or 42 maps at one point in time. This lineup is still a good one, but it's finding its feet. Now, Team 9 at this point in time already had a very good squad. They've already won one of the previous seasons of Swedish Esport League. And with Executor in the lineup, one of the greatest players of all time, he used to play with Heaton and Potty, was in NIP, was in a bunch of teams, was in Eolithic before this, the best team in the world, on paper. Yeah, Vessler, he still kept all those players. So in theory, SK or Team 9 are the favourite. But actually, we're going to see here. Let's decide. Let's find out when they play each other at this league who's going to win. One of those two should definitely win, though. Beyond that, you'll notice, by the way, you didn't have all the lineups for the teams. That doesn't necessarily matter as much. Matrix is there again because they're always going to be there. Similar lineup, basically. People are hoping they're going to bounce back. Highland Online has now changed their lineup. Even though they won the previous season, they didn't use that to go, just sit back and do nothing. They've upgraded. What they did in this scenario was they kicked out a guy called Swee, who wasn't that good as a player, and they brought in a guy called Hyper. Now, if you know anything about Swedish Counter-Strike in this era, Hyper already at this point in time was a real talent. And this year, he established himself as one of the best players in the world. And the next year, he was literally a dominant mix of an IGL, because he also did it with Vilden, and Madfragger. And actually, in the latter part of 2004, he joins SK Gaming and goes on to basically battle with the best players in Sweden to try and become one of the all-time greats. Sadly, had a quite slightly tragic career. So if we look here, they've already upgraded one position. So hey, they're going to be in the mix definitely because they won the previous one. Then in terms of the other teams, we've still got the Xperenience.se team, which have good players in it. Let's see what they can do. They only had the playoff run last time. You have the Arlaget team still. By the way, just little details since I didn't mention it before. The player here, Queen, is actually a female player. And in terms of female play, she was the best at the time, in my opinion. I mean, she could actually play an all right level game for this level. Still would be one of the worst players overall. But hey, she's playing against the top men in Sweden, the best country in the world. So just an interesting detail. I believe she was also the girlfriend of Infinity, this player who was like I think the leader of R-Laget. So let's go look at the results. Highland Online, champions of the last season, and have upgraded and added a player who's arguably going to become the MVP of the league. They win all but one game. They get the top seed. xPerenience.se build on what they did and get second place seed. SK, I'm assuming in this case, again, because round difference is more, they must have lost the head-to-head. So that's already a big deal. xPerenience.se beats SK in the actual regular season. So SK comes third seed, Team 9's fourth seed. Remember what I told you at the beginning? SK and Team 9 should be number 1 and number 2 seed, and one of them should win the final, essentially. So already a shock in the regular season. We're seeing how it's getting more competitive as it goes on, and we're getting more of those upsets when teams play more often. In the playoffs, so you're going to see again, we actually have no upset in the first round. SK plays Team Now. Now, famously, when these two teams used to play each other, Heaton and Potty used to always get the better of Vessel in his team, and it happens again here. I think some of it was psychological, some of it they used to just have slightly better talented players. And at the time, Heaton and Potty were some of the absolute top 10, top 5 players in the world. Then you go to the next round, even though xPerenience.se's done well to get here, it's SK Gaming, and this is the playoffs, and this is the LAN finals now. SK wins that match. In the final, Highland Online plays SK. SK wins. Now, admittedly, you're going to have some nerves facing in Heaton and Potty. You have to understand, at this point in time even though listen, they're still only like halfway through their careers, at this point in time, they're the most dominant players ever. They're the best players ever by like eye test qualities. They've always been clutch on LAN, even in the early days when other people are taking years to get used to playing on LAN. They're just winners from day one, the greatest winners ever. So I can understand there'd be a lot of nerves there, and they were in theory a better team. So SK wins. Order is restored within Sweden. They're number 1 team. They're the team that's actually won SEL. It meant a lot, obviously, because of the rivalry brewing between them and Team 9, because Team 9 wins Click Arena and later ESWC. So then, and also, by the way, prize money's gone up to 6.4k. So then let's go to Swedish Esport League Season 4. So this starts in June, and the end date is in September. I'm guessing because in between that period in time, you would have had some of the big summer tournaments. I don't know if ESWC, I think not, but definitely CPL Summer would actually have taken place between then, because it was usually around July to August. And then people are going to come back and play, presumably, the rest of the Swedish Esport League in the LAN finals. But look, from starting in March and ending in September, we've already done 4 seasons and given away a whole load of prize money. So if you look here, interestingly enough, we've already got a more competitive league, because yes, we've got SK Gaming, and now they've got Element in the lineup, one of the greatest players in the world, a prodigy. I think at this point in time he might only be like 17. He's been an IGL, he's been a mad fragger, he's the IGL, not a mad fragger in the traditional sense. He wasn't an eye test player, but he could put up numbers he needs to, and he could control a game, crucially. That's maybe a better way to think of him, like a point guard in basketball. He's like John Stockton. He controls the game. He doesn't score as much because he gives it to his players. He controls the game though, and always makes the right play. Now, interestingly enough here, they've also got Fisker into their lineup, who's a player they'd had in slightly earlier as well in the last lineup. Player obviously not from the old school. He'd been a guy who played with some of those guys from GamePoint, Filler and Logic. So SK is going to be a heavy favourite again. But if we consider the time period, okay, Adrenaline, that's basically the new name for Team 9. It's in fact the same exact lineup listed here. I'm actually going to have to trust some of these are correct, by the way. Some of them I'm slightly sceptical of, but we'll think about that. So even though they only managed to finish, I think it was fourth last time because they lost to SK, you're expecting again, come on, these guys are monsters at international lands. They're going to get it together. They're going to battle versus SK for the championship. Spoiler, they don't. But okay, you expect them that they in theory should be second. In terms of, actually they're listed twice here. That's bizarre. And they've got Goodfella over here. Yeah, I don't know what that is actually. Which one? I don't know. I feel like that must be wrong because Goodfellow, as far as I know, wasn't playing Adrenaline at the time. So we'll ignore that part anyway. You obviously then have, again, interestingly enough, you don't have the Highland Online team listed because they come down here. I forget what actually happened to them overall that caused the problem. I think the team just left the squad and probably was looking for better sponsorship elsewhere. And some of these players would go to other teams. And then, obviously, Goodfella, if he was on Adrenaline, I don't think he was. I think it's possibly stood in for this. I don't know about that. Maybe they trialed him by standing him in. That might make sense, actually. This is also a scenario where you have the Eyeballers team's going to come along. Now, they're not actually anything as a team yet. That would happen as this tournament and as the year went on. But you're going to later on in Counter-Strike definitely find out about Vilden, one of the greatest Swedish players. Archie, the guy I did that interview with. Gudun was kind of more of like a supportive element. So was Bev, etc. And Payne's a guy I don't even remember. So then you have, in terms of the other teams, you have the Matrix team again. They've got Spawn in the team this time again, joining up with his old mate Scream. That's not the Belgian Scream, in case I have to say this. It's a Swedish player who was actually a very good player, even was a very good LAN player. He'd even been in NIP at the very end in 2002, but then he'd come back to this team. He'd also placed third at that CPL I referenced with Filler, which was the Veslan one in Esports United CPL season summer 2002. And then in terms of others, the only other thing I've got to mention at this point in time is this little one detail, which is on this team called Kabom. There's two players I'm going to quickly mention. One is this Grey Khan. If you don't know Grey Khan, behind the scenes, he's been a key person at DreamHack, especially if we go back like 5-6 years. One of the key people that he's always been in the Swedish scene. He's someone who, as you see here, previously played with Tentpole and Forest. He's someone who did things like Make a Magazine, was part of Rakaka, which was one of the first gossip. It was like the Swedish TMZ of Counter-Strike, basically. He basically went all over the place in terms of work and things he did. He was more of a community guy, but at this point in time, he's playing semi-pro competitively. And then they have a player called Vonox. And the interesting thing about this guy was, in the early days, we're talking like 2002, he used to actually play like mixes and stuff with the top elite Swedish players. And some of them at that point in time basically told me he was a pretty good player. Like, he had the skills, but I'm guessing there was something off about him that he never made it. So anyway, now let's go and let's look at the results. So SK gets that top seed. You'd expect that. They're one of the best teams. But wait a minute, where's Adrenaline? Adrenaline's down at third again. They're not getting even second seed. Xperience.se continues to impress in the regular season. They get the second seed. Adrenaline does lock up that third seed. And I'm assuming they have a tiebreaker at this point in time, either head-to-head or round difference. Fourth place, though, is Eyeballers, who are going to become very relevant from this tournament on in Swedish and World Counter-Strike. I mean, a year later, roughly from now, they win the World Championship CPL Summer 2004 with admittedly one roster move, two roster moves. Hyper comes in and a guy called Iskal stands in. But actually, even by the latter part of this year, they're monsters. So Matrix, I mean, they have 0 points here. I forget actually what happened to them. Doesn't look as though there was any forfeits, although I'd have to check. Oh no, there was 1-0. That's yeah. It looks like Matrix forfeits a bunch of the season. So if we go to the actual playoffs at this point in time, you will see that we're going to have some upsets because in the first round, Adrenaline plays Eyeballers and they lose on Nuke. By the way, Nuke was traditionally considered the Swedish map, which is weird because in CS:GO version of Nuke, obviously yeah, Nip loved it, but actually Fnatic used to hate it, right? So they managed to lose to the Eyeballers team, which is part of what builds the Legend of Eyeballers. This is before they've got Hyper guys. Then the Eyeballers team is able to beat xPerenience.se. Is that even true that they didn't have Hyper at this point in time? Where is Hyper playing at this point? That's possible, I guess. They then beat xPerenience.se. Despite their name, obviously they still don't actually have that much experience. So actually these two teams are both like up-and-comers. And then in the final, SK versus Eyeballers, a matchup that would basically define Swedish Counter-Strike for the rest of the year, is a narrow win by SK on Inferno. Very tactical map. One of SK's better maps. So SK wins another season. They win back-to-back. They've only played in 2 seasons. They've won both of them. Everything's going great so far. They get not as much money. They get just under 5k. Okay, but things are going awesome, right? They go away to the majors, they come back. Then we go to Season 5. Season 5 takes place late in the year. We've already had some of the other international tournaments. I think we might even have had World Cyber Games at this point in time. That might have been just before this, or maybe I think it's just before. So at this point in time, this is the key thing because we've skipped forwards and definitely past some of the majors. At this point in time, SK Gaming is the #1 team in the world. They are not even losing maps now that they've gotten Spawn. They also have Element, but I think he just maybe didn't play in this season, just stayed in Norway. They're the #1 team by far. They're expected to win their third in a row, go for the what do you call it, the three-peat, build a true SEL dynasty. Beyond that, you look elsewhere, right? You'll notice here, there's an Adrenaline, and it has Veslan in it, but who the fuck are these players? Zafir, why is he playing in Adrenaline? Why are the rest of them, Lucius, Veslan, Executor, Quick, but why is Zafir playing there? Because at this point in time, actually, Adrenaline was starting to experiment with their lineup, And by the end of the year, they would go to North America, thanks to the Gamers X organization sponsoring them. And they would play on LAN there for a while. In fact, that might even have happened at this point in time. I think actually this lineup didn't play all the matches domestically, and they went to North America and practiced. And then Executor and some of the others, before Executor went, he played with like a mix of players here. And so I don't think they performed particularly well. They still come third overall. So maybe I'm talking about my arse a lot. I don't know. I feel like I'm half and half on that one. So they're expected to again be competitive, but they have continued to disappoint to make the finals. And obviously you have Highland Online, not the Highland Online before though. This is Highland Online Kaya. Think of it as Kaya, which is like something like Can't See You or some shit like that. Now, the reason why this is an interesting team is these players, Hyper's there again in a different team. You've got Bullen, who becomes a pretty good player the next year. Kalipo was always like a role player within the scene. Neb was an all right skilled player. This team, think of it less as high HLO and more as Kaya. They'd already upset some teams online in 2003, and now they start to do work on LAN. The experienced team's there again, but oh, look, we've added someone in. DSN's got a running mate called Khan at this point in time. Obviously, 3 years later, becomes one that, well, less than that, 2.5 years later, becomes one of the most legendary IGLs of all time by starting the Fnatic dynasty. Even in 2004, the latter part, he was in the Big Rip team that finished 4th at a CPL, so pretty good results, and him and DSN start to prove themselves. Unfortunately, at this point in time, they haven't really proved themselves yet. They were kind of considered LAN chokers, not at SEL, but at the domestic, at the international tournaments like qualifiers and stuff when they went to them. So you're expecting like SK to be a big favourite. Adrenaline should do something. There is no Highland Online in the old sense. That lineup's gone, so okay, they're gone. And where's Eyeballers? Where's the team that was the Eyeballers, right? They're gone as well. So as a result, this is kind of a wide open season, you think, for SK and Adrenaline, right? Maybe Experience can challenge them. Maybe HL or Kaya can do something. In terms of some of the other teams, just to reference it, to give you some info, Cole Sprotter's still playing. He's playing for a team called Orange now. His career's kind of going down the pan. Grey Khan's still there with his Kabomb squad. There's a team called Divine attending who has a guy called RWA. At this point in time, he was like a legendary player because he was a guy that was really good with the AWP and had a very unique AWPing style. Like at a time when people actually wouldn't necessarily, people used to like shoot the AWP, then sometimes go back to a pistol and come out. From what I remember, he was one of the few people who I think just rescoped. This is before the mechanic changed, I think, in 1.6. So he was kind of like a street legend, as it were, but hadn't ever been in the big teams. I think he just wanted to play with friends most of the time. So everyone was interested to see him play. Over in this team here called Lulan, which was a team that played from Luleå, which I believe is, I think it's actually more northern in Sweden. I think it's like, that's the thing with Sweden, it's why it's got so few people. It's really long, and at the top it's all the fucking snow. So I think it's more northern. And crucially, it's got two players that become relevant. One of them very relevant. Valle means hunter, I believe, in Swedish. No, sorry, that's fucking... What does Valle actually mean? I don't know. I'll delete that part of the video. Oh, will I? He was one of the most god-tier players in terms of scrims and online play. Obviously, his brother, Mini Valle, was able to make these amazing videos, Broderna Wallenberg. Just look them up online. They're the most crazy collection of like scrim and online no-scope highlight movies you'll ever see. They're just bonkers. Still to this day, some of the best movies ever. So they're starting to make their first appearances, but they're still not that known at this point in time. I think it's actually later in this year or the next year when we start to even watch the movies of them, quite frankly. So then when it comes to the tournament itself, like we don't have any results here in terms of the league. It's not the end of the world. But here we can see that based on the playoffs, Xperienience.se actually finishes first overall. Then you have Adrenaline take the second seed. So already this is shocking stuff, right? Why is SK Gaming down there at 0? Well, we're going to go down here and look. Oh, look. SK Gaming has decided to forfeit the tournament. They don't choose to play. Perhaps, I don't know why really. They wanted time off. They were the most dominant team in the world. I'd imagine something along those lines. So that already is kind of whack, right? But okay, HLO Kaya team really benefits from that. Managed to come third. And Inferno Online, who are basically all nobodies. To this day, I don't know who any of them are. They actually shockingly take fourth. So in the playoffs, Adrenaline easily... Actually, this must be wrong. This must be actually, Adrenaline must have been third. So you already have a shock that the Kaya team finishes second in the regular season. So Adrenaline monsters Inferno Online, that's expected. Kaya beats Adrenaline. You can see Adrenaline, considering the Team 9 guys won those the first season and could have won the second, they're already having problems domestically, even though they are a great international team, by the way, and would go on to be and continue to be. In the finals, this shocking upset team, Kaya with Bullen and Hyper, again, Hyper, very strong player, wins a narrow overtime game on Nuke against Xperienience.se. The experienced guys who have been impressing these seasons don't manage to get it done. I told you they were somewhat considered land chokers at the time. And shockingly, we have another shock winner. And this time, it's none of the same players from the other Highland Online team. So Highland's become the crazy upset team of this era. The fucking giants of the in the mid to late 2000s. The Giants obviously did this with their 2 Super Bowls wins. This is kind of what they're doing. Like, they're just coming out of nowhere, these crazy runs, one-offs that don't necessarily apply elsewhere. So now let's go. There's only 2 more seasons to go, guys, to season 6. Season 6 takes place. We've skipped way further forwards. Because look, whereas this one, number 5, I should actually probably mention this one because of when it started, ends in 2004, 03, 13. So actually now I think I understand why maybe SK has dropped out. Because SK at that point in time, I think loses Element maybe just before, or maybe that was even part of why he didn't play. Yeah, I think that would make sense. The Adrenaline guys slightly changed their lineup after they'd been in North America. Yeah, and maybe the Eyeballer guys just chose not to play, which is interesting because actually by now the Eyeballer guys have already finished second at CPL Copenhagen in late 2003, or maybe that's actually around this, it's during this season. And then at the CPL they'd actually underwhelmed and I think finished like 6th or 5th or something, 6th I think, which was actually underwhelming. They were a much better team than that, but they kind of choked when they got on LAN, as Archie said. In terms of only hyper performed at that tournament. So let's go to season 6. That starts now in May of 2004 and finishes, look how long this takes. It takes like 5 months. It finishes in October of 2004. So we're not getting the same amount of seasons per year. But interestingly enough, so look at some of the teams here. So bearing in mind we start in May, we end in October. Right, the interesting part is this. When this begins, this Spixel team really isn't anyone except that, you know what, it's got Bullen. Hyper is not Hyper, by the way, just you don't get confused, but it's got Valle. He's moved up from playing with his brother to join a better team now. Bullen and Valle already skilled players. Still, they haven't yet shown that much on LAN overall. The Kaya team, again, they've kept like 1 player or something, but it's not the same lineup because Bullen obviously is elsewhere. Some of these players now are in Spixel. Spixel's the team on the rise, basically, in Sweden. And at ESWC, they shock everyone with their performance there. I think they come 2nd overall. And they do a whole bunch of things, and some of their players go on to big things. Adrenaline's back. This time they've added Notorious, who was already a very accomplished Swedish player, but who'd kind of come back from, I think, like a sabbatical year and a half. Vestlin brought him out of retirement, as it were, from the wood cabin. You have Sniden, who's like still an up-and-coming Swedish player at this point in time. And you have Vestlin quickly chasing. No Executor, you'll notice, because at this point in time, early 2004, Executor is, I think actually he's just off doing something else. I think he maybe just didn't play on LAN here and he was still a LAN player because I think he played during this period. He played at one point when they were going to ESWC and they flunked, and then later in the year he obviously went and joined the NOA guys and eventually won the CPL with them at the end of the year. So Adrenaline's going to be a good lineup, we think. They've even upgraded some skill and got some nice new blood. We've got no SK Gaming. They've chosen not to play in it. They were having roster moves early on in the year. And then, again, they just didn't want to lose. They didn't want to get upset by focus like xPerenience.se online. They wanted to just stay playing the big lands. They were getting their nice salary. And so they don't choose not to play in this particular league. In terms of other teams that are interesting, you have Khan and DSN go over to Gamers.nu, which is like basically ESEA, but in Sweden. And before ESEA, I know because I worked for Gamers.nu and I told ESEA to use their format of community service and a payment scheme. And guess what? They made millions off it. You're welcome. So they have an interesting team over here with other veterans, but not necessarily proven players. They're again going to be a questionable LAN team, even though they have the skills clearly. Interestingly enough, let's look at some other teams. You've got the RWA guy again. You've got Inferno Online. Who knows why Calippo's listed twice, but let's ignore that. This team here, Ornage, you're going to recognise some of these players, aren't you? Magix and Megaton, well, they were in the Highland team that won the second season. Zad was playing in Matrix around that time, and some of these other players were known in the scene. So this is kind of like a mixture of players who never really sort of made it that much outside of Swedish Esport League and Swedish Counter-Strike. Again, trying it with a new iteration, trying to get over those LAN jitters. And so we're expecting a lot from them. In terms of this online team, the one player to reference is this guy, Legenden, because he basically was a mainstay of the old Matrix teams. And you'll notice there is no Matrix anymore. The Matrix project is done at this point in time. One last detail to add. It wasn't relevant to this season, but this team here, VXO, which would later, from what I remember, become Embrace in terms of these two players, and then eventually Big Rip, and then eventually two of these players, Temple and Forest, go from Big Rip, where they win WEG, World Esport Game in Korea, which didn't have all the top teams. Then they go to join Fnatic later in 2000 to start 2006 and have an amazing year that year. Tentpole later plays with SK Forest, obviously one of the greatest players of all time. But at this point in time, they're known in the Swedish semi-pro scene and on a lower level, but they're not famous. No one international knows who the fuck these guys are, and they weren't relevant at this point in time. Like, as you can see here, they finished dead last. So in this tournament, we have a situation where, look here, the finals were supposed to feature the top 4 teams, but due to various reasons, Adrenaline and Gamers.nu wasn't able to participate. You're already seeing, again, teams are blowing out, just blowing the league off, skipping it. And since Adrenaline lost Sniden, one of these teams didn't agree on Adrenaline using a stand-in, and therefore Kaya team, bit scummy, and therefore Adrenaline couldn't attend the LAN finals. So the LAN finals is one match, and it's Spixel against Kaya. So Kaya even benefit from that. I mean, for fuck's sake, what sort of mad conflict of interest is that? But okay. And the Spixel team wins it. As I said, they did big things internationally at ESWC as well. Props to them. But again, how many times is Adrenaline going to fail to win or make a final when seemingly they're locked in, right? According to this, they should have been a team there. I mean, nothing like this makes sense, but don't worry, they were a playoff team. So let's go to the last ever season. The last ever season takes place from October of 2004, and it only takes like just under 2 months. So we're going back to almost like trying to make them more relevant. And if you look at the prize money, so look at this, it was 6.86k. The last season has the highest prize money ever, 9.4k. Big time prize money, way bigger than some of the medium-sized tournaments in Europe at this point in time. But it ends up being the last one. They've spunked the load, boys. So now let's look. At this point in time, SK Gaming is not the number 1 team in the world. Because remember, at the CPL Summer 2004, Eyeballers beats them, and then SK recruits Hyper. So okay, people are thinking, you've got the lineup here, oh, they could be very good. But at what cost? They recruit Hyper, but Potty starts to go inactive. One of the best players of all time, one of the most clutch LAN performers for SK. So Hyper's coming in replacing Potty. He's even going to be the IGL of this particular team. Still a very good lineup. They're expected to win. Elsewhere, you've got plenty of other teams, but let's just look at some of the relevant ones. You don't have a Vestlin team. Vestlin's retired at this point in time. You don't have Executor in the league anymore. He's no longer playing. He's off in NOA and then later other teams. And what you do have, though, is you have a Highland Online team with Red, a guy who stood in. Famously, he played for Four Kings as like a Swedish import. You had Sniden again, also played in Four Kings. You had Legenden from Matrix. Then you go over to here. MTW is basically the team where a bunch of these guys, Draken is not the Draken from CSGO. I think it just means, I'm going to guess it just means dragon in Swedish or something. But everyone just copies everyone's fucking name in Counter-Strike. You all know that. And these guys basically, the best player at the time, in my opinion, was this guy Speedy. And these guys were the guys who played in the Speedlink team. No, not Speedlink. They played in a team, I forget the name of off the top of my head now, that famously was able to come second at the Null Elva LAN shortly after this begins, upsetting a whole bunch of teams, placing ahead of NOA and a whole bunch of top squads at the time. Then you have this team Smile, which basically is a bunch of players who you've heard of in the past seasons. You have Magix, you have Neb. Remember, Magix was in Highland Online. Neb was in Gamers.nu. You have a player called Zet comes along, who obviously the next year becomes one of the best players in the world in NIP, but now he's just proven his skills. Megaton is Magix, running partner from those HLO teams and then in Ownage, etc. And then Zafir has been around the block. This is just veterans trying to get some prize money. And as you see, it ends up working out for them. Because this time we go to a group stage format. We play them all out. Loads of these teams are ones I don't particularly know, quite frankly. And then you get to the LAN finals. The LAN finals are actually mental in this particular sense. I wonder actually, surely all of these LAN finals weren't actually played on LAN. I feel like maybe they played from like here on LAN, like this, like the upper bracket. And then it feels like that would be more likely to happen. So anyway, in the end, SK Gaming, this time we're just doing seeding. You're not doing a Juggernaut format, which is key. But in the double LM format, SK just wins without dropping a map. In fact, over this entire tournament, they don't drop a map to anyone. So overall, very, very skilled. They win the Ulva around a similar point in time. Although, to be fair, if this took place, yeah, this is all right. Smile, which again, Zet later is going to become a monster. They've got a bunch of vets. They managed to do impressively and finally give a big performance. They come second. Third place is the team that did so well. Second place at Null kind of showing they're not a total fluke. Highland Online, which at this point in time is just some good players, finished fourth. And we can see, again, the field's getting depleted. Some teams aren't even attending some of these tournaments. And that's it. That's the end of the Swedish Esport League. So in terms of team success in the Swedish Esport League, SK won 3 titles, and they were overall the best Swedish team of the era, even though obviously Adrenaline's Team 9 and then later Eyeballers challenged them for it and maybe slightly took that title at certain times. The fact that they won 3 titles, they didn't play in the first 2 seasons, they skipped the season 6 finals, or they defaulted the whole season, so they won 3 out of the 4 seasons that they played in. That's actually big time stuff, isn't it? So HLO, Highland Online, won 2 titles. They're technically the second most successful org, but they're with totally different lineups, and both times as a big surprise. So they were actually just, as I said, the shock team that would just have miracle runs even with different lineups. That's how crazy it was. Team 9, who won the first season and were in position to win or come to the finals of 4, 5, 6 seasons of this, only ends up winning 1. They were expected to win more, and they should have won season 2 and done a lot more, quite frankly. Spixel wins more. A mild shock, except that they were a team on the rise, and listen, they later would kind of prove it wasn't a fluke. Interestingly enough, no success for the Eyeballers guys, and they don't even compete in the league for most periods of time. Then when you look individually at who's winning titles, it's actually kind of up and down, because some of the really legendary players, so the players that won 3 titles were Heaton, Fisker, all SK core players. Then Potty wins 2 because he doesn't play in the latter SK that wins. Hyper only wins 1, despite over these couple of years being like a top 5 Swedish player, maybe a top 3 Swedish player over those years. In aggregate, he only wins 1 just because of where he is in politics and in the scene. Element only wins 1, doesn't attend the others. Execute, one of the greatest players of all time, admittedly not Swedish, but someone who was always in Swedish teams when he wanted to be, wins 0. My boy Vesslin only wins 1. And Vilden, one of the most legendary Swedish players of all time, he only wins 0. So you saw what a very weird league this is. Meanwhile, where Execute and Vilden are winning 0, you have people from the Kaya and the Highland Online team. Some of these guys are winning titles, and you're like, where's this coming from? People like, obviously, Bullen's winning titles. Valle is up there contending. Now, why did the league fail? Why did it disappear? Well, now listen, obviously I haven't done a deep dive in this or interviewed anyone. I'm going from community information at the time and behind the scenes stuff. First of all, some of the people associated were bombs. There were a couple of guys, that guy who was involved with Saw Game, there was the NIP manager, when that team fell apart and couldn't get sponsors, then he couldn't get sponsors, fucking Saw Game and BDS gave him it, and then he ran this thing and ran it into the ground. This guy was just running everything to the ground. He was like the fucking European Jason Katz, if you know that reference. Also, the other 2 people involved in it actually are still around now. One of them, I think, runs like eSportal, that like Swedish company, and then the other one also is involved in some capacity in the modern day in Swedish esports still. Some of these fuckers never die out. One of the key issues that isn't necessarily their fault though is this was way too early. I mean, think about it. If I implemented this league now, people would call it crazy and be like, wow, is it ready for that? Will the revenue ever be there? Imagine trying to do it in 2003. Then consider that obviously because of this, the money was very difficult to maintain. I've no doubt they thought that they'd get loads more investors and build the league up. And I bet at the end, they just pissed the money away and got fuck all out of it. They weren't making any profit from this league. I'll tell you right now, there was no way they were making any profit whatsoever. They were just losing all the money. Then you've got to add in, teams started to drop it and not put enough focus on it. In terms of SK, they skipped season 6 and some of the other periods of time, the early ones. So obviously they're already, by the end, yeah, they win the last one just because they want some money, but they're already starting to say, yeah, we're not going to prioritize this in our peak. Adrenaline eventually doesn't end up going to that finals because of what happens with that whole standing situation. Teams start to skip it like Eyeballers entirely. Also, as I referenced earlier, it didn't have any broadcast feature. There's no stream, there's no VODs you can go watch now. They're all just HLTV demos or POV demos. So in some senses, it was a brilliant concept. Some of the execution was very good. It led to some of the great players doing some special things domestically. It helped raise talent up like Bullen, Valle, Goodfella, Hyper, Vilden, the Eyeballers guys in general, the Highland Online guys in general. Spawn rose up through it. It really was essential and a key part of the story woven through the tapestry of Swedish esports in terms of Counter-Strike and their success and replenishing the top talents with fresh blood, etc. But it was just too early, and it was very much a thing of its time. But in another sense, the reason it didn't succeed is it was kind of out of its time. It should have been done maybe 10 years from now. This video was kindly supported by Alexander Rao, Dean Tanglis, JDubs, NateDOhDoubleG, Tobias Bernasconi, and as always, a special thanks goes out to my boy Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Maybe you want to ask me a question for my monthly video AMA. Do you want teasers? Who are the guests on the upcoming talk shows, interviews I have? Maybe you want to take part in one of those Patreon donator discussions with me. Well, for any of the above perks and more, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today at the Patreon link in the description box below.